good?
Yeah, go ahead. Talk about the game. We're going.
Yeah. I guess we'll just, since we've been talking about the game, we can go over. There's not a whole lot to go. The defense looked good. Yeah, Zach Wilson, they're all over him all game long, man. That was really the only takeaway, from. The offense continues to do its job, which is really encouraging because, you know, um, in years past, we've looked bad against bad teams. So we're beating these. Everyone likes to say, everyone we played is 0-3, which is true. We played three of the worst teams in the league.
Yeah.
So which is why I'm also not going around saying, we're undefeated and power rankings were not in the top 10. I'm not complaining. We shouldn't be. We haven't earned that yet, for sure.
Right.
But the good thing that I do take away, I don't discredit, is we've beat down on these bad teams. Like, it's been pretty dominant performances. And Teddy Bridgewater, throwing no picks, defense doing its job every game. I think we're legit. I don't know if we're true contenders, but I don't think the Broncos are complete pretenders. But obviously, this week against the Ravens is it's going to be a big deal to see. It's kind of a huge jump. I wish we could have gone like a little more gradual, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
right.
From the worst teams to a real potential Super Bowl contending team. But I'm optimistic. I hope it'll be a good game.
I think you're in good shape just because, well, really, you'll just know. Once this weekend is over, you'll know whether it's real or not. So at least you won't have to wonder anymore. You'll just be able to know your answer and get that expectation for the rest of the season.
Yeah. And I would say for me, I don't even necessarily need to see the Broncos win this week to think they're still in the hunt, a playoff team. But if they do come out looking just flat and just look bad and just can't seem to compete, that'll definitely be a bad sign. That's much more likely that it's just been the competition, if that's what ends up being the case. If it's competitive, back and forth, then I think, we have a chance against most teams in the league, if that's the case.
I will say, from my observation, I do think the Broncos defense is the real deal.
Yeah, they're good.
Like, your defense is doing great, and especially your cornerbacks. Me being a Seahawks fan, I miss having good cornerbacks that you can rely on. But I think your defense is the real deal, and just the fact that your offense has been running, a highly efficient offense consistently, that's a good sign. Even though it's against bad teams, that's still a good sign. You can throw picks against anyone. These guys, the opponents you're facing are still NFL professional players that know how to play the game. A lot of the times, it's not so much that the entire defense or offense sucks. It's just key players struggle, and that makes the entire team look bad, kind of thing. So I think the Broncos are a real deal, but yeah, like I said, this week we'll really know.
Yeah, I agree. And I will say, though, that I have been really impressed with Teddy Bridgewater's play so far. I haven't watched all the games. He's making good throws. It's going beyond like the box score at the end of the day. Watching him, scramble out of the pocket, make throws when plays collapse. Obviously, he has the ability to run the ball. He's been really, really accurate. Like I said, really careful with the ball, too. He hasn't turned it over once. Those are things that against any team, if you do that consistently, that's just playing well. So if he continues playing at the level he's been at and our defense can do this, then right now we're what John Elway has been trying to get us to for a long time. He finally has like a real game manager that's not going to lose him the game. Teddy Bridgewater's not. It's going to be hard for me. Everyone has a bad game, but Teddy, it's hard for me to see, like Drew Lock, where he just throws it away, and that's what the difference is. I don't think that's going to be our big problem this year. It's just my question is what happens when we're behind and we need him to win the game. That's obviously
Absolutely
what we'll see if we have.
I think you hit the nail on the head though, is Teddy Bridgewater. I don't think I've ever seen him lose a game, single-handedly. He's good enough to always help the team. That makes sense. And yeah, I think that's exactly what the Broncos need right now. Because you've got great offensive weapons in the passing game and the running game. You got a great defense. So really you just need a quarterback that is gonna push rather than pull, kind of thing. And you guys will be fine. I think you'll probably have your best record in a while this year.
I mean,
and who knows, maybe even a chance. I would definitely, especially with how your freaking division's going right now, you definitely have a chance of making it into the playoffs.
I mean, right now, man, the stars have aligned for not just Broncos fans. I know Raiders fans are feeling the same way.
Yeah.
Even Chargers. Everyone besides the Chiefs right now feel much more optimistic about their chances to win this division, even though it's early, because no one could have dreamed for more than Chiefs starting 1 and 2. Like, that's just unbelievable. So to start ahead for all 3 of the other teams it's great. I'm excited.
Yeah, AFC West, super competitive. Like, all 4 teams should go to the playoffs. Really.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Dude, you're honestly looking like one of the better divisions in football right now.
That's kind of how it's been for a while now. Really, it's only been the Broncos holding back the division for the past few years.
Oh, yeah.
The Raiders a little bit. I mean, last year, Chargers Chiefs have been great.
Yeah. Yeah. And the Chargers are a weird thing because, like, we think of them as this great team, but they only went like 5-11 or 6-10 or something like last year or something.
That's true. Yeah, that's their record last year is actually probably worse than it was, years before Justin Herbert. I'm pretty sure Philip Rivers was getting them better, win-loss.
Yeah, I think they were in the playoffs. Well, no. I don't remember how they got the 6th pick, if that was because they just sucked or what, but yeah, I mean, the team, they just charged it up. They lost a lot of games they should have won.
Right.
Everyone just came in like, Chargers are going to be so good. And, but yeah, I mean, they've always been a solid team in the AFC West, but, they really look like they're putting it together, and the Raiders look good. But yeah, only time will tell because it is early. It's September, and we've seen the Raiders melt down in November. The Chargers we see still getting a lot of penalties, and so they got a little lucky that didn't cost them too much against the Chiefs. And then we got the Broncos, who've had the competition that they've had. So there's still a lot of football, but it's still really exciting because they all look good. Like, forgetting last year, just thinking about this year, they all look like legit Super Bowl contenders, which is good for the league. It's good for the league.
It is. Now, real quick to touch on the Chiefs, and I don't know, like I said, I wasn't able to watch the whole game. I did go back and see some of the key plays, but I just want to touch on something. I don't know if I said this on this podcast or if I talked to someone else about it, but I remember after the Super Bowl, I think it was on this podcast, we kind of touched on it, talked about what we saw, and we talked about how that's the first time we've ever seen anyone really make Patrick Mahomes look bad. And not to say that he's been bad this year, but I'm pretty sure I raised the question, did the Buccaneers find the blueprint for people to use to expose the Chiefs and Mahomes? And I don't think anyone's replicated that performance, but to see the Chiefs go 1-2 in their first 3 games is pretty, we haven't seen anything like that really since Patrick Mahomes has been here. And a lot of it has been defenses taking advantage. Patrick Mahomes has turned the ball over a lot more this year than he has in years past. The Chiefs' defense is also being exploited. It's one of the worst defensive units in the league so far, statistics wise.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys think this is Chiefs just catching some bad breaks, or is this actual like a real tangible shift in their dominance over the AFC, over the NFL as a whole? Have people found a way to beat them more?
I think that they could easily be 2-1. So it's not like a panic button type thing, but yeah, they've become a lot more beatable. So one thing I'll say is, what's dangerous for the Chiefs is like depending on winning shootouts is not a good game plan. Because if you, it doesn't matter who your quarterback is, if you have to depend on your quarterback winning it at the end of the game, every game, they're not always going to do that. It's not always going to happen. No matter how good of a 2-minute drill, no matter if it's Tom Brady, doesn't matter if it's Aaron Rodgers, doesn't matter if Patrick Mahomes. Like, I've seen it watching the Cowboys. We've seen it with Aaron Rodgers. We talk about that. Like, that was one of the times where it went well for Aaron, but we've seen times where it doesn't go well. And the Packers have depended on Aaron Rodgers a lot, and I think that's part of their NFC Championship woes, is just one too many times they depend on Aaron to bail him out. And I think that could be the same thing. The Chiefs are kind of heading the same way as the Packers. They won early in Aaron Rodgers' career, and then they're just like, dang, dude, you're just so good. Why don't you just always win the game for us? And so that's kind of how the Chiefs might go. And it's like, well, if you're going to do it that way, you might not ever win another Super Bowl, because that you can't just depend on your quarterback winning a shootout every single game. And that's what it's been all 3 weeks. And you're going to lose some. You're not going to win every time when you do it that way. It's just not going to happen.
I think you guys are right. One observation I've had, and I remember us talking about this after the Super Bowl, was the big thing is, what unraveled that offense in that game was Patrick went from having like usually 5 or 6, sometimes 7 seconds in the pocket comfortably, he down to like 2 or 3. I mean, just that defensive line dominated that offensive line so much that, I mean, Patrick was just literally running for his life. And it's obviously hasn't looked like that this season, but I do feel like overall time in the pocket is still less than normal. And that's what's forcing him to make, worse plays, worse decisions, bigger picks. I mean, one of the picks he threw this week was a no-look pass. It's like, yeah, man, maybe you shouldn't throw those as often, because as soon as you get a pick on one, everyone's going to point that out like, oh, you threw a pick on a no-look pass.
Feels good, man.
We've all seen the memes.
When I saw that highlight,
but
yeah, finally.
But so I think the offense overall, because of the offensive line struggle to protect him as much as they have in the past, has kind of created a discomfort. But I think the big problem is the defense. The defense is just allowing way more points than they normally do. And yeah, kind of like what Austin said, man. I mean, they've relied on Patrick to come and, have a stellar game in years past. And they're doing that again this year with, even less to offer apart from him. So yeah, they're struggling. Of course, it's the Chiefs. I wouldn't be surprised if they turn it around and dominated the rest of the season. They definitely have the team, the coach, and the personnel for it. But, the system that's happening right now isn't working too well, so they're going to have to make some changes.
Yeah. And to be fair to the Chiefs, they've played 3 top tier
good
teams at the beginning of the season. The schedule didn't favor them early. And yeah, I mean, it worked out against the Browns. They were, a fumble away from being the Ravens. It didn't work out. And then, obviously we saw it. Like, yeah, if it depends on winning at the end of the game, like, it always depends on when you get the ball back, the momentum you have, what field position, all that stuff. Like, you know, you can't just depend on the last 2 minutes every time to win.
But I do think they're not going to finish the season last in their division. I think they'll still have a winning record. I just think they're not 4 steps ahead of all other teams. Now they're kind of back to earth level with a lot of top tier teams.
Yeah, they. I mean, the whole AFC West plays the AFC East and the NFC East, and that's good because you get, you know, the Jets, you get obviously the NFC East. We know how that goes, and you know, so I mean, there's a lot of easy wins on the schedule for everyone in that division, and it's you know, I think they all could split. You know, like Broncos and Chiefs could split, Chargers and Chiefs could split, Raiders and Broncos split. You know, it's a tough division. So,
yep.
You know, who knows? There's still a lot of time for them to figure it out, and they're a good team, and they will figure it out.
I agree, and you know, this week they, like you brought up, they get to face, you know, the Eagles. That's a pretty good team for the Chiefs to, you know, come off these hard competitions against and have a chance to really, you know, look like their old selves. I bet they will.
I'm sure.
Speaking of the Eagles, though, Monday Night Football, we got to see Dak Prescott and the boys take on the Eagles. It looked like, you know, it was probably the most one-sided primetime game we've had so far this season, I would say.
Probably that, and then the Rams-Bears game. But probably this was even more one-sided. It was just nice to see how dominant the Cowboys were. They were 3-point favorites in the game, but, like, the Eagles only scored one substantial touchdown, or offensive touchdown. I mean, the defensive touchdown was substantial, it just wasn't on offense. So, like, the defense, like, shut the Eagles down, and then the Eagles just could not stop the offense at all. Like, Zeke was having a field day. Dak was throwing it up and down the field at will. So,
dude, that was the first time I've seen Zeke. I haven't seen a better day from Zeke in a long time.
Yeah. And he has been struggling. But I think that was a good statement. He's not done yet. Everyone's writing him off. But he's still there. He's not top 5, but he's still there. He's good. I mean, he's probably not worth his contract, but he's still a solid starter in the NFL, and I'm not worried about him at all.
There's not very many running backs who are in their contract, man, when they get a deal like that.
Yeah, exactly. I think the only person that lives up to that contract would be Derrick Henry. But no, like it was just good to see. And I what bugs me is going and looking at the power rankings, and like they've either stayed the same or have gone down from that. Like on ESPN, they went from like 13 down to 14 on the power rank, and it's like, well, what do you expect them to do in week 3?
Yeah.
Then, because like what do you? It's like, oh well, the Eagles suck. It's like no. Okay, well they lost to the 49ers by like 6, and I thought they were like, you know, a Super Bowl contender or some crap. But you know, none of my business. Anyway,
I don't think you can trust. You shouldn't even like look up power rankings until like week 6 or 7 when more data has been gathered.
Such a joke.
Yeah, once you look at the power rankings once the playoffs have been set. You'll notice how the power rankings are finally accurate with, and they're the exact same as the actual team rankings.
Amazing. Yeah,
they're so smart.
But you know, and so it's just going to be that way though for like the rest of the year, because the Cowboys also have a very easy schedule. They don't play anyone from the AFC West. Well, they do play people from the AFC West but people thought they were going to be bad. So everyone's like, oh, they don't play someone who had a winning record last year until like November. Great, good, get winning then, and and it doesn't matter as long as they make the playoffs. It's anybody's game. They went toe to toe with Brady. They beat the Chargers, who just beat the Chiefs. They just smacked down the Eagles. You can't win better than how they won. So I'm excited. This is the most excited I felt in a long time, and I think the biggest difference actually is the hiring of Dan Quinn. Something that has bugged the crap out of me of previous Cowboys defenses, even when they had decent defenses, is that they never got turnovers. Like interceptions were like a rare sighting. I'm like, oh wow, a rare interception. Nice. Now it's like they're doing it all the time. Trayvon Diggs is 3. Like they're super opportunistic defense. And everyone's freaking out about, oh, they're getting passed on a lot. Well, I mean, in that game, it was a bunch of garbage time yards. I'm not worried about all that. Yards, defensive yards doesn't matter. They've been playing really well. It's just that way the league is now. People pass on you, and everyone's freaking out about the pass defense of all these teams. Like, it's fine. That's the way the league is now. Dak can keep up with them, and we're getting turnovers. Our turnover differential is one of the best in the league. Have the most takeaways in the league,
dude.
So that's one of the most important stats you can have.
Yeah.
And they're 2-1. So
honestly,
screw you guys.
Honestly, the Cowboys defense is like 180 since last year, because that's what we all ragged on last year, was the defense was so terrible. And a good defense like that's performing well, and then an offense that I think the Cowboys, especially this year, but even last year, especially with Dak healthy and playing, they're so good at controlling the clock.
Yeah,
they're really good at time management. And there's so many things that you have to be good at to be a top tier team, but there are some that are more important than others. And I think time management on offense is huge. And then, like you said, turnovers for a defense is huge. So Cowboys are the real deal this year. I don't think anyone should sleep on them.
I don't think so either.
It's hard to look at your competition, and again, it's early, but there's not that many teams in your division that are jumping off the page. I would say, honestly, the Eagles, to me, would be the one that is most set up to challenge you. I mean, the Giants can make a 180 off, but the Washington football team, losing Fitzpatrick early and what they're going through, they've seemed like they're full rebuild, pretty much.
Yeah, they are. And the division isn't much of a competition. Now that Dak's healthy, like the Cowboys are clearly the best team.
You're going to the playoffs. Division. Cowboys are going to the playoffs.
And, anytime you beat a division rival, like the Eagles had beat Dallas on their shirts, everyone got one, and they were just like psyched up, and then they had that cheap like push in the huddle, personal foul early, and like trying to start fights at the beginning. And when the Eagles were as ready to play as they could be, and we still just smacked them around the field. So
yeah, man.
Like that's when you play a division rival and you win, I don't even care. Like we've struggled in the past, so beating good teams. 2 years ago we lost to the Jets, so it doesn't matter. You got to beat the bad teams.
Yep.
Right. Just like the Broncos, you got to beat who's in front of you, who's on your schedule, and that's all that matters. Just
you got to clearly beat them, and that's one thing both your teams do way better than the Seahawks. I don't care who the Seahawks are playing; they're going to be just a little bit better if they win, or they're going to be a lot worse if they lose, which is what's been happening lately.
But yeah, speaking of the Cowboys made a 180 on defense. The Seahawks have been in a steady defensive decline for a while, and this year, through 3 weeks at least, they are looking like also one of the worst defensive units in the league. Their teams are running the ball on you guys like crazy. I think your run defense in particular has been really pretty poor.
Here's the issue, okay? Well, I was prepared to talk to you guys about this, so let me start. Let me preface my weekend. So obviously I'm like, okay, last week sucked, but it was Derrick Henry. Like, Give me a break. That can happen to anyone in the league. But, obviously you're slightly nervous because obviously, Vikings, we usually do really well against them, but they're usually close games. And they're not the worst team in the league, so I'm hoping we can kind of prove ourselves, stop Kirk Cousins. I mean, I thought it was a complete blessing that Dalvin Cook wasn't playing, but turned out to not matter. Anyway, so my brother-in-law sent me an article, I think it was Sunday morning, and I read it, and it was talking about, because the big thing was after the game against the Titans in the press conference, Pete Carroll kind of said something that can be taken as a jab at Russell Wilson, where he was like, yeah, I just really wish Russell could have made something happen and gotten the ball down the field in overtime, so we would have won the game. And it's like, yeah, I mean, obviously we wish that, but if you're really trying to blame that loss on Russell, like, you're an idiot. And that's the thing. I think that's how Pete was saying it. It came off like he was trying to really throw Russell under the bus, but I think it was just kind of in the moments he just poorly chose his words and didn't have the best tone because obviously he was frustrated. So it's taken like, whoa, Pete's blaming this on Russell, like the Pete and Russell feud is back, like full force. So that's kind of what this article was talking about. But anyway, I kind of doubt most of those things. I think it was just kind of a casual, like, yeah, it would have been nice, but clearly that wasn't the main issue. But then it did talk about Russell and just the way he plays overall. And one thing I noticed was, and this article pointed out, is Russell Wilson does not like to throw it over his line in the center of the field. And I've kind of like subconsciously known that, but when I read this article and it really broke a few plays from the game down, I was like, wow. And then I was thinking about it, I was like, it's like we run or we chuck. It's never we chunk our way down the field or like I compare it to like a Tom Brady Julian Edelman relationship where just over and over and over and over it's 5 yards, 7 yards, 10 yards, 6 yards, always nice cross through the middle. Tom just pocket passes it to Julian gets a couple yards after the reception, and we're getting first downs consistently. That never happens with the Seahawks. It's always like go outside or go long, or I'll run it. And I think it's the fact that Russell Wilson's always played like that, and I think it's because he's shorter. So getting the ball and seeing over the offensive line is a little bit more difficult for him, and it's just something he's not as comfortable with. He does it. I mean, he does it on occasion, but that's one thing that it's nice to have a team that can consistently do that. So anyway, I went into that game like, I just want to see that. I really want to break down the offense and see how it goes. By the end of the game, it's like, dude, our offense is fine. Like, yeah, we have things to work on. We're not amazing, but the way our offense runs works. I mean, Chris Carson's a good running back. We've got two of the best receivers in the league. We've got one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and we make it happen. We score points. But our defense, man, it looks bad. It looks so bad.
You guys have been getting gashed. I mean, you talked about it. Like, obviously, the Derrick Henry just going off in the second half, that was something. But like you said, I think everyone was like, that's Derrick Henry. But in the Vikings, they're no slouches at running the ball either. But to see the backup to Dalvin Cook go off for 100 something yards and another 60 and through the air, and
dude,
it's like, yeah,
here's what it is.
Shocking.
Yeah, so here's what it is. One thing is the Vikings actually have a really good offensive line. They really do. And Kirk Cousins generally has a lot of time in the pocket, and that's the only reason he's like gets the numbers he has, in my opinion. But I mean, dude, we have I think 1 or 2 sacks this year. And the whole Jamal Adams, like, I love the guy, and you know, I think he's a good player and he gets pressure, but at this point our secondary sucks. Like, I'm sorry, but our freaking safeties are pretty average and our cornerbacks are below average, and then sacrificing one of our safeties to add another linebacker, it's like, okay, like, that's fine if it makes a difference, but we're not getting pressure on the quarterback. So I'd rather have Jamal just play his position a little more, stay back and help cover these receivers, because that's the problem, is we're weakening our secondary hypothetically to strengthen our line and our pressure on the quarterback, but it's not happening. So it's just weak. And I think what it comes down to is our defensive coordinator. Can't remember his name right now. This is gonna bother me. I gotta look it up. Ken Norton Jr. Thank you. I don't know, it's just weird. Last year turned out to be great. We had a rough start on defense last year. We acquired Carlos Dunlap and things changed, and we had one of the most solid defenses ever. And not too much personnel has changed on defense. And that's the other thing. Bobby Wagner still being Bobby Wagner. He leads the league in tackles. I mean, I don't know what's happening, man, but we are allowing way too many yards on the run and in the air, and that's why we're losing these games. Our offense is super efficient. Russell Wilson's, you know, having his normal beginning of the season on fire, let him cook numbers, and we're scoring points. But that's the thing. I think this week what happened is our offense started fine, but our defense got so gassed it affected our offense. I mean, it just is bad. So,
well,
I honestly give Ken Norton Jr. a few more bad games, and it's like, dude, I'm sorry, but we have a good roster. We know we're capable of more. You got to make some changes. You got to do something, or else, like, what else would we do other than replace you?
Right. Now, the rough thing for you guys is, you know, you guys, if the AFC West is competitive, then, you know, the NFC West is ultra competitive, because you guys,
dude, that's
your
the
teams
thing.
there are,
they're
legit, and it's going to be tough going against the Rams and the Cardinals with Kyler Murray looking like he's evolved maybe to his final form. If last year was, you know, the first evolution in his stage, he might have gotten to that final form now. So that's going to be tough when you play those teams and the defense can't make the stops.
Dude, I'm nervous. I've been excited to go to the freaking Thursday night LA Rams Seahawks game for like 8 months now. I'm not very dude, I don't want to go watch my team get absolutely steamrolled by the best team in the league. Like, I'm really nervous. Like, that's why I've got extra pressure. I'm like, bro, something's got to change by that week, or Ken Norton Jr., dude, he's got to go.
We can't have Dan Quinn back. Dan Quinn's ours now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the Seahawks obviously have it within them to fix some things and still remain competitive, but it's the reverse of how I feel in my division. Like, when you're in these super competitive divisions, a slow start or even a little edge
it's detrimental.
Can be a big deal throughout the season. So
yeah,
we'll see, man. You know, but I think they can have a chance. The Rams, though, like you talked about them, you said you think they're the best team in the league, and you're not the only one who thinks that. They looked, they just put, you know, the Super Bowl champions,
took them to task.
And dude, like, that's the thing about that game, the LA Tampa Bay game. Like, it was pure preparation, planning, and execution. There wasn't luck. I mean, the Rams just went there to beat the Bucs, and they did. And the Bucs didn't play super terrible. It wasn't their best game, but dude, the Rams look near unstoppable right now.
Like I said, you guys are going to have to fill me in if you saw this game, because I haven't seen much, but I do know that, this Tom Brady had a good game. The Buccaneers actually threw for more yards, 446 to LA's 407. Neither team ran the ball that much, and there wasn't a lot of turnovers, so it was a close game, even though the Rams still continue to look dominant. But did either of you guys see it? What was the difference in this game?
It wasn't as close as it looked.
Was there some garbage time yards put on there? Maybe
Brady got a lot of. So that it was actually pretty controversial. The game was over. There's like 2 minutes left, and they're down by 3 scores. And Bruce Arians leaves everyone in, and like nearly gets a guy hurt. Gronk's still out there, even though he hurt his ribs. Brady got sacked like 3 times, and it's like, dude, what are you doing? You guys lost the game already. Just give up. Like,
I got you.
And they went down the field and scored a touchdown just so that the score was 34-24 instead of 34-17. So there was that. But really the difference in the game was just like how quickly the Rams could score. And just the execution of their deep passes. They got Deshaun Jackson out of nowhere. I'm like, wait, when did you guys get him? And so now Cooper Kupp and him are just running deep routes everywhere, and they've got plenty of time to throw. The Bucs defense doesn't look as good as they did in the Super Bowl, and they've had some rough games with the Cowboys and with the Falcons, and now with the Rams. They've got some injuries in the secondary, and Vita Vea and whoever else they got aren't getting the pressure that they used to. Stafford had like all day to throw that whole game, whereas Brady, is doing his usual get the ball out quick type stuff. But that was a major difference. Was just like the Rams could score at will, whereas the Bucs had to really fight for those points.
Yeah. I mean, so far the Rams have been what everyone thought they could be when they upgraded a quarterback, man. Like, even last year, we were talking about them, how good they were, and I think all of us, I was the most critical, but all of us thought if they could have someone a little bit better than Jared Goff, how scary they would be. Well, that's the reality now, and Matt Stafford is playing really, really good, and especially his connection with Cooper Kupp has been insane. I think Cooper Kupp is the best wide receiver in terms of
I think he has the most yards in the league, and
he's leading the league in yards.
Wow.
I think I talked to one of you guys about this a while ago, but Matt Stafford went. It's confirmed now. Matt Stafford went from like the worst offensive line to the best offensive line in the league. So he's probably just like, dude, this is like NFL easy mode, man. Like, I have all the time in the world, and I've got good receivers to pass to. Like, it's just their offense is so dominant because everyone's doing their job well, and just their entire game plan is so well planned by Sean McVay. Oh, man, honestly, it's they're in my division. I should hate them, but I have nothing but respect because Sean McVay has put together like an incredible team.
Yeah. Well, 2 things. Matt Stafford forged in the fire of Detroit. Like, everything that could go wrong goes wrong in Detroit. And I've watched him. Like, I've watched a lot, like, him play my Cowboys quite a bit. I've seen him play other games. Not a lot of people watch Lions games, but I've watched quite a few Matthew Stafford games. And I've always known he was intelligent, one of the smarter quarterbacks in the league, and everyone's like, well, he had Calvin Johnson and all this stuff. How come he never won a playoff game? Well, I mean, who has? Who? Like, it's Barry Sanders with all his skill struggled there. Calvin Johnson, obviously, it's just amazing. Like, Matt Stafford's finally in a place where his skill set can finally flourish. But what the weird thing about the Rams is they're so top heavy, it shouldn't work. Like, they're paying so many elite players and have no depth, but no one gets hurt, so it works. But I'm like, why can't that happen for my Cowboys? Everyone's criticizing the Cowboys about how they pay, all their stars so much money and have zero depth, and they have nothing to show up for it. And here the Rams do the exact same thing, and they're geniuses.
Yeah. Yeah. No, the Rams, their stars do stay healthy, man. I mean, Aaron Donald has not really ever dealt with much injuries. He's not missed serious time. Jalen Ramsey's doing fine. So, but yeah, they have their big names for the most part, and that's a good point. They don't have the money to have consistent, good or reliable backups. So hopefully for them, hopefully they stay healthy.
And they do have Sean McVay, who is a very good X's and O's strategist, as well as just a really good rah-rah leader. He's an incredible coach. So if someone got injured, they'd still be good, but they are extremely star dependent. So yeah, they just need to stay healthy, and they've got they should be Super Bowl favorites.
It's hard to imagine they're not. They're like the Buccaneers from last year, where they have a quarterback that's more than capable of winning games, going out there and winning it himself, but a defense so good that lots of the time that's not required. And when you put those two things together, that's pretty much a Super Bowl contender, Super Bowl favorite right there. So, I mean, but they're tied with the Cardinals, who are also playing good. I would say the Cardinals' defense, although they had a really strong week one, they're not looking like they're probably middle of the pack defense or so, based on what we've seen. But Kyler Murray's playing really well. What do you guys make of the Cardinals? Are they like on par with whenever I think of LA, I think Chargers. LA Rams. I kept thinking LA. I was like, no, it's worse that their logo looks the same too, man.
Yeah.
Come on.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up though, because they play this week, and I think the Arizona is gonna get beat down.
You think?
By the Rams?
Yeah.
I do. I think they'll get brought down to earth against this Rams team. I think that the Rams will probably win by 2 touchdowns. That makes me sound like I don't think the Cardinals are good. I just don't think they're at the Rams level. They struggled against the Vikings. The Jaguars game was kind of close till the end. They were losing at half because the Jags took that field goal return. And so I think there are holes in the Cardinals. They're good. They don't have it all put together quite yet.
Yeah,
I don't think they're quite there at that level yet.
I think the big thing for the Cardinals is they are so reliant on Kyler Murray offensively. It's working. They're scoring a ton of points, but it's not from their rush. It's not from running the ball. It's all from it's not from their running backs. It's Kyler Murray either running or making good passes and throws. So as soon as someone can actually get a lot of pressure on Kyler and not allow him to do what he normally does, they lose. They lose that game, and then it shows people what they need to do to to kind of replicate that outcome. Still really good. Kyler's a great player. They're solid, and here's the thing: their defense is really good too, for the most part. I mean, they're stacked as far as pass rush, which is, I think, extremely important. So it works well. But yeah, I think when they go up against a completely well-rounded team like LA, their imperfections are going to show.
Yeah, they'll have to score. They'll have to score a lot of points. The Cardinals will, if they want to beat a team like LA. They're not going to win a low-scoring game.
Mm-hmm.
And they're kind of following the LA formula. They have a lot of mercenaries on their team for hire. They got, JJ Watt. They went and got AJ Green. Went and got all these pieces. DeAndre Hopkins last year. So they're a patchwork, star-studded, wannabe, following the footsteps of LA type thing going on here. It's interesting. They'll make the playoffs.
What's the deal?
But they'll make the playoffs. They missed them just barely last year. They'll be there this year.
You guys not got a salary cap in the NFC West, man? I mean,
dude,
what's going on? Dude?
I don't freaking know.
You guys just seem like you guys. It's not all teams in the NFC West. Maybe not so much the 49ers, but when there's a big trade or a big acquisition, it's always the DeAndre Hopkins trade, the Jamal Adams trade,
Jalen Ramsey.
Oh, Jalen Ramsey, Matt Stafford, dude. Yeah. It's like you guys get all the headline signings and trades. It's crazy.
It's true.
But I mean, that's the thing. Besides the Rams, I guess, all other teams have one part of the game that they're completely lacking because they can't afford. They like Seahawks. It's secondary. Like, we don't have one. I don't count Jamal Adams as secondary right now, but like our cornerbacks / actual safeties, like, I don't even know their names. I do, but like, they're not good. And then you look at like the 49ers, their offense, I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo, they're not spending a lot of money on their offense. They're spending most of it on their defense. Their offense is, good enough to stay in games, but
yeah.
And I don't know. Maybe that point I was trying to make wasn't very good. Dude, I don't know. I don't know.
And we've talked about these top two, but the 49ers were 1 2-minute drill away from being 3-0 as well. So they're they're in it too. Like, the 49ers are weird where they just drafted the quarterback that's assumed to replace Jimmy Garoppolo sooner rather than later, but they're still a team that has a chance to challenge in this division. So
Jimmy Garoppolo honestly has been playing pretty well this year so far, which I think is why they're hesitant to throw Trey Lance in, just because Jimmy G's kind of getting it done. I mean, he still has his Jimmy G quirks, but we know what he's capable of. We know what he's capable of, and he's looking more like the good Jimmy G than the bad one right now.
And I think that's fine, and especially as you look around the league, none of the rookie quarterbacks are looking very good right now.
Yeah.
And this past week in general was a really bad week for all of them, especially Justin Fields, who
gosh,
a rough game. But the 49ers are the only ones really keeping their, I should say, probably Mac Jones he's looked by far the best so far, and he's in the best situation. But no, what I'm saying is the 49ers waiting to start Trey Lance while Jimmy Garoppolo is still playing. It's like I said, if there's a quarterback worth learning something from, which, I think Jimmy Garoppolo, he's a good quarterback.
They win with him.
They do. It's debatable whether they should have even really reached for a quarterback at all, but they did what they did. But I think if they're going to do that, they should just say this is Garoppolo's season. And I really hope if they do start to falter a little bit or things get a little shaky, they're not going to bail super fast. Because I think it'd be best if he got a full season, and if at that point you think he's ready, trade away Garoppolo, and the next year is Trey Lance season.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And they're built to win with Jimmy G right now. Like they're fine. They'll be okay. They're 2-1.
All right, I have a couple things I want to talk about before this podcast is through. This was honestly a good week of football.
It was.
First, let's just briefly touch on the topic of, 37 seconds left. Aaron Rodgers wins a game. And I think everyone's talking about it, but I do think that was showing like, okay, Aaron's in this. Like he's committed. He's committed to the Packers. He's committed to the season. He wants to win. And he showed us that during his play and on the sideline, just the way he acted, post-game interviews. And maybe he didn't, I don't know, part of me is like, I don't think he was until this game. And maybe he discovered that he's in it too, because he hasn't really looked like it, but it was very impressive. I mean, usually you want at least a minute, preferably closer to 2 for a 2-minute drill, but that was a dang good 37-second drill.
Yeah, it was. It's what Aaron Rodgers, that short of time is impressive even by his standards. But in general, that's what Rodgers has done several times. So, yeah, the whole narrative of, I don't know if he started the season not focused or whatever, but I will say this, everyone is looking at him on the sidelines when they kick in, and he's pumped, and I believe he was, and this is just, now I'm just going full on, any one of those speculative journalists that's just saying random bullshit, so we might as well, but I'll just say it anyway. Do you think maybe he's doing, I believe he cares a lot, but he's really trying to extra show it to say screw you to all the people that say I don't care, you know what I mean, like really really making it visibly obvious that he's really into it. Dude. Guys, if you want my opinion, I think I think Aaron Rodgers is too good at football. I think week 1 he did care. He didn't go out and not care, he just had a sucky game, but I think now he's so pissed. Aaron Rodgers, he hates the media, man. He says it all the time whenever he has a chance to, go on YouTube or something. But I think there's a little bit of this, like, he wanted to show everyone, like, no, you're wrong, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows. Whoever said that's an idiot. You're all idiots. Look at me. I care a lot. You know what I mean?
That's definitely an Aaron Rodgers thing to do. And now that you point that out, that probably is exactly what he's doing.
It could be. It wasn't just Aaron Rodgers' fault for the first game. I mean, that was just a bad game. The whole team just sucked. Mm-hmm. But, going from the get-go of that Sunday night game against the 49ers, the whole team looked jazzed up. Mm-hmm. And I think, and that includes Aaron Rodgers. I think, they were all listening. Aaron Rodgers listens to the media. He hates them, but he's listening. He cares what they say. And so, all this bulletin board material, and they came ready to play, the whole team. They were going to play for Aaron. And so, and that makes a huge difference. When a team, can really get behind you. I don't know, how much of all that was, Aaron. But one thing that I didn't get a chance to say last year, but it was kind of Aaron Rodgers' fault, not all his whole fault, but he was in control to win the NFC Championship game last year. He had 3 chances, and he was the one throwing to covered guys and missing wide open receivers. So, to go oh man, my team, I don't know if I'm going to come back because they won't put people around me. When the game was on his shoulders. Like, it's not just because they kicked the field goal with 4th down. He had 3 other downs that last drive, and he totally missed receivers. He could have won the game, but he did not.
I'm glad you said that, because I agree with you. I think a little bit too much focus has been put on the decision to kick the field goal, and not quite enough focus on being forced to be in that decision. You know what I mean?
Like, he had 3 downs, and they were in the red zone, and he forced Devontae Adams when he wasn't open, and he had like Lazard open or somebody else open, but he had a pre-snap decided who he was going to throw it to, and he had chances to win the game before they even decided to kick the field goal. So the personnel and the decision by the coach and all that, it was like, oh, it was my decision to do that, blah, blah, blah. You had the opportunities on the field to not make that happen. So, I mean, like, it's fine that the Packers, like, you're mad that the Packers don't listen to you. You're okay to be mad about that, but let's not act like that's the reason they lost. The Super Bowl was on your shoulders, Aaron Rodgers. It was there for the taking. You were the quarterback. The coach was on the sideline. He didn't have to tell you what to do. You're the one throwing the ball, and you didn't do it.
That's honestly truth, man. I feel like he's been bailed out from blame because of the situation, and because people can look at that. And sure, maybe that wasn't the best decision, but when Aaron Rodgers couldn't get it done, like you said, he put him in a situation where that, in hindsight, although it might not have been best, I remember watching it, and I could see when I watched it live, I didn't think it was necessarily the wrong decision, because that drive had completely stalled out. And like you said, it came to a 4th and long. And anyway, that's ancient history. But yeah, as far as all that stuff, I agree with you.
Yeah, I've been dying to say that on the podcast for a long time. I don't know why I didn't come up with it before, but I was like, yeah.
I was thinking about this week too, man. I was thinking about that recently. I don't know why.
Yeah, and that reminded me, because when he goes down in 37 seconds and easily gets into field position to score, it's like, okay, so you can do that, but you can't do that in the NFC Championship game. And it was 3 drives. Tom Brady was giving him like, Aaron Rodgers, I dare you to beat me. He threw 2 picks in the 4th quarter.
That's true.
You know what? You know what's interesting though, and I'm not. This is again just armchair spewing stuff. I'm not looking at statistics, but most of the 2-minute drills Aaron Rodgers usually runs, in my recollection, it's usually getting his team in field goal position to kick it for the win. Am I wrong in saying that? Most of the games I'm thinking of, they kick it lots of the time because it's a close game. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He's had a few Hail Marys, and
Well, yeah.
And people question whether or not that should even count. Like, as a touchdown, because you're just throwing it up there and hoping your guy catches it. So like, he's had the Hail Marys, but like, to have like a go down the field and like score in the red zone on a 2-minute drill because you have to score a touchdown. He hasn't done that too much.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, like, the Packers depend on Aaron Rodgers too much to go out and win the game. And that's where the beef comes. It's like, if it comes down to that every single time, it's not always going to work out. Sometimes you lose. So.
Yep,
it's true. And the only thing I will give Aaron Rodgers is, they talk about how out of the last decade, how many times they've drafted 1st-round defense instead of replenishing his offense. You know what? For me personally, I think that's fine, except for this. Their defense is consistently mediocre, even though they keep spending the draft picks. That's where I have the issue.
Yeah, that's true.
And again, this year they're not. Their defense, they don't look like the worst so far through 3 weeks, but they're not. This year, the difference between them and some of these dominant teams like the Bucs and the Rams is they have a really reliable defense, whereas the Packers, Aaron Rodgers still this season, like seasons past, really needs to show up for them to have a shot. He needs to play a good game and make those game-winning drives and everything else to win games most of the time.
Mm-hmm. Agree. One final thought for me, moving off that topic. How seriously should we take the Panthers this year? They're 3-0. They haven't played the hardest teams, but they've dominated. They dominated the Texans this week. Sam Darnold looks... It definitely feels like a Ryan Tannehill leaving the Dolphins kind of thing. We're like, oh, he's actually good. You know? Except it's a lot earlier in his career, which is good for him. But I want to know what you guys think. Are we worried about the Panthers, or are we just like, oh yeah, they just had a good start?
That's tough. You know, it is hard. Sam Darnold is no doubt looks better through 3 games with the Panthers than he was last year with the Jets and years prior. And unlike some other teams, they have at least one player who really is what that offense flows through, and his name's Christian McCaffrey. Unfortunately, he's injured for now, but it's not season ending or anything like that, so that shouldn't, be a season-wide issue. I guess just like I'm waiting to declare my Broncos contenders, you just got to wait and see with the Panthers. They did beat the Saints, and I don't know if jury's still out on how the Saints are this year. They've kind of looked everywhere from really good to really bad and everything in between. So it's really hard to say. This week they play your Cowboys.
They do. So. And it's a trap game for both of them. And I mean that in a different way than you think of a trap game. It's whoever loses. It's they weren't as good as we thought they were. Mm-hmm. So it's like the Cowboys beat the Panthers. It's like, well, the Panthers, they beat crap. They're not that good, and they're 3-1. And then if the Panthers win, it's like, well, it's the Cowboys. I guess the Cowboys aren't that good. And blah 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 blah. So the Panthers, there's no winning in that game really. It's just you in the column really, but no one changes their opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But
that one's not helping you in the power rankings, man. Yep, that one's not helping you in the power rankings either way.
No,
I'll say the Panthers defense has looked really solid.
They've allowed the fewest points in the league by far.
So, that's something you can't take away from anyone, even when you're, like you said, we're playing the Jets, we're playing the Texans. Yeah. But when your defense is out there playing, it really doesn't matter who they're up against. If they're playing well, then that's a good sign for your team. So,
well, the same. They made Jameis Winston look like the Jameis Winston we all know and love, and then he goes to Bill Belichick's defense and has a pretty solid game. So I think that's pretty telling. I think there's a little measuring stick there. Is they did it better than Belichick's defense against Jameis Winston. So just in there.
I agree. Yeah, they could be good. They're, again, all these teams, there's lots of these teams that are in the upper parts of their division, but most of them are in these tough divisions. They have the Buccaneers right behind them, which everyone expects to be the dominant team and likely will be at the end of the season. So the Panthers have to be more than just decent to challenge for that division. They have to really be good.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. All right. Well,
that's it. We're going into week 4. You guys still liking football? I'll tell you what. I'm usually out by now. It's rare for me to. I'm usually doing the Homer Simpson in and out of football by week 4, man, completely. I'm afraid that's still coming. I still have that deep feeling in my gut that it's just delayed, but
it's a little later over here. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. The Cowboys are one of the best looking teams on primetime, man. Their uniforms and their helmets just glow in those bright lights. And there's nothing that gets my blood flowing a little bit and watch the Cowboys on primetime, and especially when they win. Well, so I'm more excited. I'm like, man, the Cowboys look better than they have in a long time, so I'm really excited for this season. I'm like, hey, we would actually win the crappy East, so like we should every year anyway. So I'm excited.
Well, I think I traded you guys my confidence and good fortune because
hey, man,
I haven't had anxiety about football in a long time, but I have serious anxiety.
Imagine how good you'll feel if you come back here a couple weeks after seeing your Seahawks upset those Rams in person. That would feel pretty good.
Dude, that'd be great. But
there was the NFL app. I didn't know this, but that was the first time the Seahawks lost to the Vikings, or the Russell Wilson has lost to the Vikings ever.
Yep.
I was like, wow, that's impressive.
First time he's been bested by Kirk Cousins.
7-0, now 7-1 to the Vikings. I was like, oh, that's an interesting stat.
That's also one of the very few times Russell Wilson has lost 2 games in a row.
Wow, that's even more impressive.
Like, Russell Wilson is the best in, I think, the history of football as far as the game following a loss. But
wow. I think this is good for your Seahawks, Thomas. I think
it'll humble them a little bit.
What I'm saying is, I'm a firm believer that the Seahawks have been, and will continue to be a team of 2 halves of the season. And last year, you guys had a hot start, but it's always better to finish hot if you make the playoffs than to start hot.
And usually we do start slow and finish hot. And dude, you might have a good point here.
Hopefully they keep losing so they can delay that win until when they really need it.
Let's just get our 5 losses out of the way so we can go 12-5 by the end.
Exactly.
Well, everybody listening and watching, thanks for being here. Thanks for supporting us. Thanks for enjoying our content, if you do. And we'll see you next week. Have a good week.